The ego is the system that runs your sense of self. It is made out of thought patterns, emotions, and behavioral loops, and the stories that try to hold it all together. Left unchecked, it creates endless existential searching, chronic disconnection, and the persistent sense that something is wrong. The goal of my videos is clarity, to see your identity and its contradictions for what they are, named precisely, to finally understand what it is that we're all running away from. Imagine you were a god in some sort of astral realm, and in this astral realm, things are kind of okay, things kind of don't exist and kind of do exist, and you think you're so full of potential, and you kind of want for more potential. Like you want for more things to be possible, and you are God, so you could make them possible, but you know that the only way you can make it possible is by creating pain. Now, would you create reality, or would you say that this is not a worthy trade-off? Yeah, think about this well, because there's a lot of trade-offs here you're making, right? So yeah, pain exists. Like you can experience the pain of a broken leg, you can experience the pain of burning, you can also experience the pain of losing somebody you love, you can experience the pain of a job that you hate, right? There's so much pain that you are unleashing on into this world. But in return, you also get everything else. You get the pleasure of ice cream, and you get the pleasure of a good night's sleep. You get friendship. You get all art, like all art. You get sports. You get YouTube videos. You get sexuality. You get drugs. You get addiction. You understand I could list everything, right? And sometimes even the things that I list might already include some sort of pain association with them, depending on where you are at in life. And you can see that everything includes pain. Pain is the nature of duality, and if you want something from this duality, then you must go through pain. If you're not willing to make the sacrifice to be in discomfort, you're not going to accept the steps necessary in order to make what you want happen. Pain is always at the other side of deeper awakening. Pain is at the other side of growth. Pain is at the other side of deeper understanding of yourself. What people don't want to do is to feel pain. And this is like very natural, right? It's kind of like the nature of the thing. And it's also the reason why most people find non-duality kind of illogical. Because how could there be like oneness between all things if there's clearly like pain, and pain feels like an other that's very vivid? But think about it, right? Like if this God created this world and created duality, meaning that it created the potential for pain in order for everything to exist, then pain and everything is also like kind of spawning from the same force. So it is still one. And even if you want to disown your pain, even if you hate pain, it's pretty much part of the adventure. And yeah, you would also miss out on stuff like movies, as most movies include violence, or you would miss out on drama. You would miss out on just fights. And there's also a lot of like pleasure we find in stuff that are kind of violent. It's actually everywhere if you look for it. So even though you want to like say maybe, yeah, when you accept pain, then there's like this pain you dislike and all of the like good stuff that you gain, but we even like pain in some way, right? There's like masochism and sadism, where people find pleasure in getting pain inflicted upon, or having pleasure while inflicting pain. And this means that there's another layer here that's not just about pain, and it's about what is your relationship to pain in the first place. Because the physical sensation might be uncomfortable, but then you might have a mental reaction that makes it way worse. And I used to have a lot of paranoia about like breaking a limb or something. When I was young, I just imagined the potential of, yeah, this physical like pain. And I just hated it so much that I spent way more time being fearful about breaking a body part of mine or hurting myself than actually getting hurt. And when I was a kid, I used to fall down all the time, and I always had some part of my body that hurt. And there's where a lot of the existential stuff came up. And you have all of the stuff that you could be doing in your life, the way you could evolve and grow as a person, and stuff that you could truly accomplish that would fulfill you and feel amazing for everybody around you. But you know that to get to this place, what you have to do is that you have to endure the discomfort of, going outside of your comfort zone, and this means pain. And in the awakening sense, there are like a ton of experiences that you had in your past that you don't want to process, you don't want to look at, and they are basically hidden in your subconscious mind. And then really understanding yourself requires to look at who you really are or who you really were, and to confront yourself with all of these unprocessed emotions, which then is again a confrontation with pain. It is always pain that puts us in the boundary that we are currently stuck at, something that we refuse to feel and therefore keep where we are comfortable in. But if you're somebody who is actually kind of okay with discomfort and it's okay with pain and acts despite of it, or even because of it, then you have a lot of fuel. And there's a very toxic version of that as well, which is the drive of the ego, which tells you that if you don't suffer your way to success, then you're going to fail or be useless. The ego basically convinces you through a sense of, just the stick over and over again, like the metaphor with the carrot and the stick. It uses the stick over and over again in order to tell you that you're not good enough and pushes you to that. And for some people, that actually works very well. Like almost all multimillionaires have been fueled by just this internal sense of lacking something and just punishing them. But for a lot of people, it actually paralyzes them and it makes them not want to take risk because they're lacking the other equation or the other part of the equation that is way more effective, which is actually self-compassion. And it is not just feeling the pain, but actually feeling compassion towards yourself for feeling the pain. And compassion is a very key component in spirituality and also in personal life satisfaction. Because, pain is unavoidable, but can you empathize with the fact that we're all in this together? And literally every single person has some shit to deal with. And literally every single person has pain that they need to overcome. And it doesn't matter how enlightened you are, how awakened you are, how spiritually deep you understand the nature of reality. Yeah, you can remove a lot of the suffering that comes from a negative relationship to that pain, especially the mental kind. And life can be a lot better in this relationship. So if you are currently like suffering mentally, or you're like resentful of life, or you hate life, then this is the type of pain that can completely dissolve. But the potential to break a limb is always there as long as you are alive. That's what this kind of deal is. It gives you the ability to experience all this freedom, all this potential, all the ice cream and the sex and the art and just the beauty of life in the exchange that you can feel pain. And if you disagree with that, then you're disagreeing with life. You're disagreeing with the version of yourself that might have chosen to be here and made the deal. And in a way, you couldn't know any better, right? Because how would you know how it's like if you aren't actually there? So you kind of have to go to the adventure of life and see what all of this like existing is all about. And then you will also learn what pain is all about. And through that, you can grow and become way more than you could ever be without it. And compassion links us together. And it's the tether that makes reality real. If you understand that another person is in pain without you having zero access to their consciousness, but treating them with value and care and compassion, you understand that the interconnectivity that we're all in doesn't require you to prove consciousness or prove existence. There's something slightly painful when my light just cuts off. I don't like when this happens because the battery now is so low that even plugged in, it's going to turn off again. But hey, what can you do? These are the things that I need to endure in this life. Can't you see? There's something to be said about how much spiritual communities want to dismiss the nature of pain. And they want to kind of convince you that by, just kind of dissociating into awareness or dissociating into consciousness, you can just kind of overcome it. And I find Stoicism actually takes what real spirituality is about and makes it into something way more pragmatic or way more realistic, where you do not try to fight it, because fighting it is exactly what creates this loop that makes things worse. And oftentimes, the way you're fighting it is very subtle, and you're not even understanding how you're fighting it. They're like deep patterns within your own ego architecture that perpetuate the sense of pain. And it is shocking to see how much pain is actually self-inflicted and how much of it is actually unnecessary. And this is often what is referred to as suffering and as an illusion, because so much of this mental fabrication that creates the sense of, yeah, unbearability is this, yeah, illusion that we put on to the relationship with suffering. Now, if you want one-on-one help with uncovering what it exactly is that you are kind of illusion or like delusional about, and that causes you unnecessary pain and friction in your life, instead of just living out of, yeah, courage and free spiritness, then check out my ego architecture audit in the link in the description. Pain also relates to a lot of meaning that we find in life, because when we create something, we usually want people to have the ability to relate with the thing that we're creating, that is often in a positive sense, but also in somewhat of a negative sense, right? Like the reason my videos exist is because pain exists and suffering exists. And although I do talk about like the potential and the beauty of life and all of this stuff, if everybody was already kind of like enlightened and happy and content, then my videos would have a very, very different purpose. They would probably be way more artsy and just be full of expression instead of actively building a business to help people to, yeah, deal with this stuff. And you can find within like the nature of pain and then the compassion towards that pain, your own sense of purpose, because it feels very purposeful to do something in this world that alleviates other people's pain. And this might be something very simple, like if you like making like cakes, then you can make a cake factory, and then you alleviate the pain of people who want a nice cake and they can't find it. Isn't silly. Might sound silly, but I mean it. Like anything that you do that makes another person's life better is truly meaningful, in a sense that their experience and their quality of life actually changes, and also the way they carry themselves in their life. Like, you're not yourself when you're hungry. So the more you can reduce pain in this existence and increase the pleasure of, just all human beings, the more I am pretty convinced you are fulfilling the real purpose of what consciousness is here to do, which is elevating the sense of consciousness that we're in and elevating our sense of being. Because we can actually have our cake and eat it too. We can create a world where we have so much freedom and so much potential. We decided that it is worth to create everything, even at the sacrifice that we can experience pain. But this doesn't mean that pain is obligatory. So much pain isn't. And this starts with all of the psychological overlay that we put onto reality that just makes everything worse than it needs to be. And of course, just the modern society structure of just accumulating wealth and then not giving it to people that actually really need it, whose lives could be way, way, way better off. Like right now, we have enough resources on this planet, so nobody should starve, nobody should, live on the streets, nobody should be in this like physical human pain when there are enough resources for everybody. And I'm still a capitalist, by the way. So I think that there's a reality where capitalism can still work and still survive. Why does this get political all of a sudden? But I do think it is important to note that the real importance is always finding a way in which we can make it so that all living beings on this planet do not need to suffer, and not just on this mental layer, but also on this physical layer, that all our needs are met. And if we see each other as oneness, we see that we are all in this together and we operate from compassion, then it becomes the natural way. And then it doesn't really matter if you're a communist or a capitalist. I mean, theoretically, you could even be an anarchist, but it's difficult to like distribute wealth this way. But yeah, it doesn't really matter what ideology you're pertaining if we can just agree on the fact that there shouldn't be anybody just suffering from the lack of resources when we have the resources available, and we connect with the fact that it is truly meaningful when another person or another being is in pain. And yeah, this goes into a lot of other topics too, like, okay, and then are you a vegan? Do you everything possible to avoid pain for others? And it's like, no, I don't think you need to be a vegan. I'm not a vegan myself. It is positive if you are, but It is much more about what is it that you can do to alleviate your own pain first, your own suffering first, and then what is the way you conduct yourself in this life that removes the pain of other people. And it's this way of operating in the world that makes you get what you want, because you can see how pain is actually the driving force for everything we do. We want to move away from pain, and it doesn't need to be in this like toxic way, like just not causing yourself bodily harm or psychological harm for that matter. Already is like a big step up, like outside of all of this psychological depth work, which is very important as well. But just carrying yourself in a way that uses the pain in your life to go deeper into what you actually want, without having this like ego fuel narrative that you must punish yourself in order to accomplish your goals, but to just recognize that the way you're living your life is causing you more pain. So why would you be in this situation? Just remove what is causing you pain, and you'll have a better experience, and you make other people's experience better, and you will actually get everything you ever wanted.